Jagannath Madguru Shri Jagadguru Madatma Sarvabhutatma Kripalu Gurave Namah Namah Kamalana Namah Kamalamaliini Namah Kamalapadaya Namaste Kamalekshana Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam Yo Vai Vedansha Prahinoti Tasmai Takvangha Devamatma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye Eternal seekers of divine bliss. As a daily procedure, we chant the divine name, so we will do that even today, and then I'll continue my talk from yesterday. Bhajo Giridhara Govinda Gopala Bhajo Giridhara Govinda Gopala Bhajo Giridhara Govinda Gopala Bhajo Giridhara Govinda बोले वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की So far we have discussed that happiness is the universal goal of every living being. And each and every soul has been incessantly striving to attain this happiness from beginningless time. Yet, in spite of our unceasing efforts, we have not yet attained even a glimpse of that happiness that we are searching for. What is the reason? The reason is that we do not know the why, what, and how of this goal of happiness. Yesterday, I told you the definition of happiness as has been given in the Vedas. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham. Chandogya Upanishads, verse number 723, 1. Happiness is that which is eternal. Happiness is infinite. And happiness has been defined to be ever increasing. And secondly, happiness once attained is never ever followed by any kind of misery or suffering. From this definition of happiness, it's very obvious that we have not experienced even an iota of that happiness because we are still attracted to the insignificant, trivial pleasures of this material world. And not only that, we are experiencing suffering, misery, unhappiness all the time. A philosopher, Emerson, said, every sweet has a sour, but the bliss of realization is above it. The beauty of spiritual bliss is that it is never adulterated by even a trace of misery. Even the Saint Tulsidas said the same. He said, Soi sukh lavalesh bar ik jin sapnehu lehu. If you had experienced that happiness, even in your dreams, then there was no question of even having the least attraction for any material pleasure. You know what the great Saint Ramakrishna Paraman said? He said, anyone who has experienced even a little bit of divine bliss, they would find all the pleasures of the world as if they were crow's droppings. So it's obvious that we do not have this experience as yet, but we are incessantly striving for it. And how will we attain it? The scriptures reveal to us that we are parts of God who is bliss, and our striving for happiness is actually a desire for God, which we don't know. Therefore, unless and until we attain God, there is no question of ever experiencing that happiness from anything or anybody in this material world, because our search for happiness has got nothing to do with this material world. However, unfortunately, although we are never satisfied with anything in this material world, we do not want to accept those spiritual truths. We have more faith in what science tells us. Although whatever science tells us, they keep changing. But still, we have no doubts over there, and we question the existence of God. Therefore, let us come to this controversial question of the existence of God. It has been a subject of research since time immemorial. Today, as always, man is seeking God, but without realizing it. As I mentioned, we all desire eternal, infinite happiness. And this is actually speaking a search for God, because God is the infinite reservoir of divine bliss. Doesn't the Taittiriya Upanishad say it? Anando brahmeti vijanat anandad deva kalvimani bhutani jayante anandena jatani jivanti. The definition of God is bliss. Verse number 3-6. In the same Upanishad, you've heard it so often. Raso Vaisaha. He's the nectar of divine bliss. In the Srimad Bhagavat Puran, Vedavyas states, Krishna me namavehitva matma namakhilatmanam jagadhitaya sopyatra dehi vabhati mayaya. 10th canto, 14th chapter, 55th verse. God is the soul of all souls. He is the fountain of love and bliss. Now we all love happiness, perfect happiness. So therefore, nobody is an atheist. Truly speaking, if you love happiness, without even knowing you love God, therefore, there's not a single person in this world who can say, I don't believe in God. Do you believe in happiness? Do you love happiness? Of course I do. Then that is automatically a love of God. You may admit it or not. It's like a person ignorantly saying, I love my mother's husband, but I don't love my father. That's how absurd it is. But yet, the world is full of such people. That is why William Blake, he's a poet, he said, man will have some worship. If he does not have the worship of God, he will have the worship of Satan. By Satan means we worship in this world, isn't it? Whatever we are attached to, whatever we crave for, whatever we love, that is a worship. So you have to have some worship because we have this desire for happiness. Tulsidas Ji also says, Asko jeev jantu jag mahe jehi raghunath prana priya nahi. We have exactly the same thing stated in the Valmiki Ramayana. Loke nahi savidyeta yo narama manobrata. What are these saints saying? There is not a single soul who does not love the Lord. Naturally, we have our doubts because we know so many people who do not believe in God and at the same time abuse God. But these saints cannot be wrong. The reason they state that is because we all, without having been taught, have a craving, a desire for perfect happiness. And that perfect happiness or bliss is God. It's another name of God. Nevertheless, let us begin this inquiry into the existence of God. In order to prove the existence of any entity, there are three kinds of evidence. Listen very, very carefully. One is perception. What is perception? To accept only that which we can see and experience. That is evidence by perception. Second form of evidence is inference. Inference is knowledge that follows other knowledge. That is called inference. And thirdly, there is scriptural evidence. The evidence from the scriptures. So we have three kinds of evidence. Let us take it one by one and find out whether we can prove God through them. The first is evidence by perception. Now, this is the very evidence that atheists use. They disprove the existence of God by saying, well, because we cannot see God, there is no God. Finished. But it's ridiculous. It's illogical, unreasonable to make such a statement, because there are so many things in this world that we do not see, but we accept without seeing. Do you need to see the wind to accept that there is wind? You don't. You don't see it. Not only that, tell me, how many of you have seen all the countries in the world? Let's take for instance, the country Mauritius. Have you seen Mauritius? No. How do you accept that this country Mauritius does exist in this world? Plain and simple. I have read it in geography, read it in history, so I accept it. But those are only books, isn't it? And they are written by human beings. How can you accept that as evidence? Okay, I know a lot of people who have been to that country, so I accept it. But people can be liars. So many people lie in the world. How do you accept that as proof? Okay, then what I can do is, I can buy a ticket and fly down to that country, and that's going to be the proof. Will you accept that? Yes, I'll accept that. This is exactly what the saints are saying to us. They are asking us to follow the prescribed method in the scriptures and practice it sincerely. And after that, if we do not see God or experience Him, then we have a right to say that there is no God. But before that, we are not being rational in saying that I don't believe in God because I cannot see Him. You know, butter is a product of milk. You've all seen milk. Now, suppose you tell somebody that there is butter in milk. This butter that's here, it's come from milk. And he'll look at the milk and say, well, I can't see any butter. So therefore, there is no butter in milk. How can you say that? You have to follow the right method. The procedure of making butter from milk, once you do that, then you can say, disagree or agree accordingly. Ramakrishna Paramhans, the great saint, guru of Swami Vivekananda, said, you see stars in the sky at night, right? But you do not see them during the day. That does not mean that those stars are not there. In the same way, oh man, if in the days of your ignorance you do not see God, you cannot say that there is no God. He gives us another example of, pearls which lie at the bottom of the sea. Now, if one person dives into the sea and comes out and he says, there are no pearls, you cannot find a pearl just by diving once into the sea. You have to do it again and again, and then one day you will definitely find the pearl. This is exactly what applies to proving the existence of God. As I was saying, that there are a lot of things that we cannot prove by perception. Can you prove love? Can you prove happiness? Can you prove mercy or grace? These are not something that you prove just by perception. It is something we experience. Even in this material world, our senses are very limited. Can you see with your ears? Definitely not. Can you hear with your eyes? These senses are part of the same physical body, isn't it? But we are limited. In the same way, in order to see a divine entity, we definitely need the right means, the spiritual means, the divine instrument to see that entity. Suppose I ask you what this is. You say this is a glass. Now suppose I take it away and ask you the same question. You will say there is no glass. So the existence and non-existence of this glass is proved by our senses, isn't it? In the same way, the existence and non-existence of God can only be proved by spiritual means and not this material senses, mind and intellect. As I was saying, they're very limited. How far can you see? An eagle can see further than we can. Limited senses. How much can you hear? Up to a certain distance, isn't it? So our senses are limited. They are material. And that supreme, that divine entity is beyond our material senses, mind and intellect. A French philosopher, Descartes, said, we don't need any proof of God. The very fact that I exist is a proof of God. This is one of the most famous quotations in philosophy. I think, therefore I am. In French, Descartes says, Je pense, donc je suis. The same thing is also in Latin. I think, therefore I am. So my own existence, by our existence, we can infer the existence of God and this outer reality of this world.